this will be our last episode of the season for BOATT, and we are very happy to present our guest of the day, our guest of honor, Teresa Mask with AT&T PR. She's going to have little door prizes for everybody. We're going to be sending out Don't Text and Drive bumper stickers, and we're going to have a good conversation about the Don't Text and Drive campaign that AT&T has been running for quite some time now. So we're very excited for that. So if anybody has any questions specifically for Teresa, be sure to hit the Q&A with those, and just make your presence known, and we'll definitely get a hold of you and make sure we get one of those bumper stickers sent out to you. So of course with me today, Alvy is missing again. This should be the last week he misses, hopefully. But today with me we've got, of course, my co-hosts Joe Maring, Fred Scholl, and Chuck Haynes, and then our special guest, Teresa Mask. So we're going to go ahead and skip the intros first. Just get right into something exciting here. So what I want to do is, of course, as I said already, please hit the Q&A if you're here at all. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to ask a question or make any kind of special comment. Just let us know you're here and watching so that we can get one of those bumper stickers sent out to you. And we will have the Q&A and the showcase open for everybody to kind of follow along with what we're talking about. So let's go ahead and jump right into our news headlines for the week. Chuck, Fred, you guys have some exciting, interesting stuff to talk about, don't you?
Yeah. So
as always, go ahead.
So some of you guys, if you're watching last week, you might have seen my little rant on HTC. So I wanted to kind of give a little quick update on that story because things have kind of done a 180. So I wanted to kind of say I'm not actually mad with HTC anymore. So for those of you guys who may or may not know, I sent my device in for a screen repair under their Advantage program. They ended up denying it because it was out of manufacturer warranty because I had S-off the device. Okay, fine, you know. I've done this for long enough that I know S-off means void warranty, but I didn't think that had anything to do with replacing a screen. So had them send the device back to me, and I thought to myself, well, you know, I really, Jason McKenzie, I believe that's how you pronounce his last name, is an exec at HTC, and he's pretty active on Twitter. So I thought to myself, you know what, why don't I just tweet him and suggest that, you know, they really should honor screen repairs even if you've unlocked your device. I mean, they're really not the same thing, you know. Because you've done something software to your device shouldn't mean that they don't replace a crack in the screen. Well, long story short, I tweeted him. About 8 hours later, I got a phone call from HTC, which imagine my surprise that, A, someone at HTC actually saw the tweet, and furthermore, they took the time to figure out who I was from my tweet, look up my case at HTC, and then find my phone number and call me. So basically what ended up happening is they have said that they could replace my screen under special circumstances. Basically, the reason they denied it is because what they're told to do at the place that repairs them is if they can't do the full diagnostic, which is software and hardware diagnostic, when they get any kind of device in, then they're supposed to decline the repair under manufacturer's warranty. So because I S-off, they detected an unauthorized software. They couldn't do the software diagnostic, blah, 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 blah. So long story short, they've agreed to actually replace my screen and under the warranty, under the understanding that it's only hardware repair and they won't test any of the software, which I'm perfectly fine with. I wouldn't have expected them to anyway. It's S-off. They shouldn't be doing that. You know, I shouldn't expect them to fix something that or test something that I've tampered with. When I did end up getting my device back, interestingly enough, after talking to this lady from HTC, to say that it came back in disarray was probably an understatement. The power button was not put back in the device at all. It was just kind of sticking on the top. The screen was only half put into the case. And there's 4 screws in a bag that I have no idea where they go to. So I took pictures of it when I opened it up and sent it to the same lady I talked with. And apparently, my request is being tracked fairly carefully at HTC because she called me the next day and said that my pictures not only had been sent to the management at the repair center, but had been sent to the executive staff at HTC. So I'm pretty sure someone's probably getting fired for what they did for my device, which I apologize if that's you. But it sounds like HTC really has decided to take an interest in my case and really make what was a wrong a right. So I'm pretty happy with them, long story short. They took the time to respond to my tweet, find out who I was, find the situation, and actually correct what was, I think, a wronging in the first place. So that being said, cool. I know, long story short, but I wanted to update everyone on that. Fred, I hear that we have a little story here about the FBI and Apple and Google. What's that about?
Okay, well, news yesterday was James Comey, director of the FBI, held a press briefing on the topic of privacy. And it's most of the headlines are talking about this in relation to Apple, but it's really both Apple and Google who have announced pretty strong privacy policies and their intention to keep their phones locked down. And specifically with regard to Apple, the comment was that encryption and lockdown on the phones is such that Apple themselves would not be able to unlock a phone to get at the data, photos, contacts, etc. If the user locks it down. So the comment was that even if law enforcement officials called upon them to do so, they would not be able to do so. And that is supposed to encourage confidence in privacy and security, particularly relevant after the leak of celebrity photos that were in of a personal nature, shall we say, that were in iCloud, which were kind of all over the news and the media a few weeks ago, and might have kind of tainted the iPhone 6 rollout. Not that anything could have slowed down the iPhone 6 rollout, but Apple took a pretty hard stand, and the FBI was critical. Google's policy as well, and Comey, the director, expressed, as he put it, deep concerns and said there were issues that would have to be talked about, and was not even sympathetic to the concept of privacy. So yeah, go ahead.
This is kind of interesting to me because, we've had, I'd say in the last year, really what I would call a public awakening on, privacy and what can the government really get to. Me personally, it was no surprise to me when most of the stuff with Snowden and things came out. With what can the NSA do, what can the FBI do, what can the government do. It's really no surprise, but they've still kind of been hush-hush about it. It's interesting to me that someone from the FBI would come out and basically publicly say, a company trying to protect your privacy is a bad thing, and we're going to have a talk with them.
Well, but to the FBI, they don't see it as privacy. They see it as a means of obstructing law enforcement. And the real concern here was that they're using it as a marketing tool. This is something that's being marketed to consumers, is that, hey, you guys can take this phone and nobody can force even us as the manufacturer to make your information available to them. Still in all, court orders may not be able to force Apple to do so, but the power of the law can be used to force people to give up their data or to unlock their phone. And as some of the critiques and commentaries have been saying, law enforcement is not beyond getting warrants to get at that information, putting people in a holding cell to cool off and think about the issue while you're considering the security level of your phone and so on.
Right, but is there a difference between, a court order coming to Apple saying, give us access to this person's phone versus a court order to that person to give, access to the phone? I mean, I'm not a legal expert. I don't have any idea. And I think it would actually be kind of cool to have a legal person on here some week to talk about this too. But I'd like to know the difference between, under the law, what is the difference between Apple saying, well, we can't do it, versus a person saying, I won't do it, because where would a court order really go to? To me, it would have to go with a person to let someone into their phone. It shouldn't be up to the company anyway. That's why you've got these, secret court, what is it, FISA, whatever, FISA or whatever, we have all these gag orders on, collecting this information on people, and they don't even know about it.
Well, exactly, and it's not like Apple is managing the data. Although, again, if stuff is in their cloud storage, then perhaps so. But the reality is, it's really whether the individual can be forced to give up their information. And for most people, it's going to be more of the nature of personal photos that they don't want to have leaked out. There just aren't that many Edward Snowdens around who are doing stuff that could potentially get them in that level of trouble. But I think the likelihood that somebody would call upon Apple to unlock users' phones is unlikely. So it's kind of an easy gambit for them as a marketing tool. It sounds great, but for you and me as a user, I think the issue is going to be the same. Can the court force you to give up your information? And it's not that much different from getting a court order to say that they can come to your house and take your physical paper files, is it?
No, I mean, I think that, making you as a person give it over, unfortunately, I think that falls under the same as a search warrant for your house. But I think where I don't really like it is, the forcing a company to give over information without you even knowing about it.
Yeah, because I think most people in this day and age, if they were asked and there was a legitimate reason, as far as I know, for me and most people I know, if there was a legitimate reason for the request and and the information was going to be used to clear their name, I know most people would probably give up whatever they had, because I don't know a lot of people who are storing, data that would be all that incriminating. It would be the equivalent of a traffic fine or a parking ticket if there was anything bad, and the kind of data that they would probably be searching for are the big bad guys, like just the highly illegal stuff. So if they were asked, maybe it would be a different story, but the idea of them saying, hey, Apple, you need to return this information over to us and you can't tell the person that we asked for it, that's really scary.
To move on to another story we've got in here. I know this kind of landed today or a couple days ago recently, this whole Nexus Shamu story of the possible Motorola producing the Next Nexus. So I didn't get to read a whole lot about this, but I know, Chuck, I think you had a bit of info on kind of the specs and stuff that we could be seeing from this.
Yeah, it looks like the rumors, and at this point, let me preface this with, this is all rumors, purely speculation. Until anything's official, we can just, assume. But it looks like from the recent leaks and pictures, it's kind of looking like a oversized Moto X. Looks to have a very similar body, just kind of stretched out, kind of similar camera, the same little dimple that Motorola likes to put on the back of their phones. It's looking like a 5.9 inch, which is just massive. Quad HD, probably a Snapdragon 805, 3 gigs of RAM, so Tony might actually buy it. And
yes, sir.
As far as the other things, we don't really know. Probably assuming 16, 32 gig. For some reason, Motorola thinks that 16 gigs is still a good idea. That I'll never understand. So let's hope that there's at least a 32 gig option. But the interesting thing here, and Tony was talking about this earlier, is this compares kind of right in line with the OnePlus. I'll turn us over and ask Tony what his thoughts are here in a second. But you've got probably what we can assume based on previous Nexus prices is probably a similar price point to the OnePlus. And it's all ASAP, Android open source. It's all going to be stock Android open source. Get the updates direct from Google. So, Tony, what are your thoughts on that? I know you've got a few.
Well, I'm trying to share the Android page that shows the Shamu next to the G3. So, whoever's watching right now, if you want to see that, I'm going to go ahead and post it right on our event page, because Showcase won't let me do anything either. So right now, just to clue everyone in, our Q&A is down. Showcase doesn't work either. So Google is obviously having an issue with some of their some of the apps that they're using here. So I just posted the link on the event page, and if you look at it next to, actually, I'll go ahead and screen share while I'm talking too. Let's hope that app works at least. So if you look at it next to the G3, you can see that is not a huge size difference. I mean, people think, oh, it's a 6-inch screen or a 5.9-inch screen. It's going to be huge and it's going to be way bigger than the anything else. It's obviously, yes, it's going to be way bigger than any other Nexus. But the Nexus is almost always way bigger than the prior Nexus. The only two that we had that were very similar size were the Nexus 5 and the Nexus 4. Those were the only two that were really comparable sizes. Otherwise, there was a pretty sizable difference between each of them, and that was because of the introduction of the nav bar and all that. So for me, as a OnePlus One user, I have to say that I would totally get the Shamu because I've owned a G3 and a OnePlus, and I can tell you from that picture that is almost exactly the same size as my OnePlus. And my OnePlus has a 5.5-inch screen. And if they it does have hardware buttons at the bottom. So if they put a nav bar down there instead of hardware buttons, you're going to have a bigger screen, and you're going to be able to fit it onto the same size, or if not slightly smaller body. I would love a bigger screen if it can fit on the same size body. Especially now that I'm used to a body this size, and even with I've even using a case on it. So I know I can deal with a slightly larger phone. So here's the kicker for me. And this is something I've said we should talk about a little bit this show. So is OnePlus One a little bit kind of irrelevant now, dead in the water almost, as it were, because they've released a phone with what is now midway last generation specs, because it's got the Snapdragon 801 processor and a regular 1080p display. Now, mind you, I'm not saying I'm not that big of a spec junkie that I have to have the Quad HD display. I actually prefer. I sold the G3 and kept the OnePlus because I prefer the 1080p display because of battery consumption and processor use. But if we're seeing a phone with a Snapdragon 805 2.7 gigahertz processor, or 2.6, whatever it is, 3 gigs of RAM, which the OnePlus One also has, a larger screen, which is a 2K display, which would a Quad HD display has to be a slightly bigger screen than 5.5 inches to even really be able to tell the difference, at least from what I've seen from a regular 1080p display. If they release it with 64 gigs of storage and a price point comparable to what we've seen from the Nexuses in the past, so 350, 400, or maybe if they offer 3 options, 350, 400, 450, OnePlus One may as well pack their bags and go home, because they still haven't even released the device. They haven't even released it wide for people to really think, oh, this company's awesome. They're still on this invitation system, and if they release this Nexus this year, and like Chuck said, this isn't even a for sure thing, so these are all leaks. If this actually happens, though, and it gets released before January or before OnePlus actually starts opening, allowing people to actually buy their unit, I think it'll be over for OnePlus One users, because it's targeted at almost the exact same audience.
I do want to comment on that, though, because I do see how we saw all the Nexus products in the past, they do have that really competitive price point, and when they come out, for the time they come out, they have really comparable specifications, usually top of the line stuff. But I have to disagree with you, though. I know we were talking about this in the chat earlier today, and Chuck was kind of saying this too. There's still that set of people who stock Android is going to be enough for them. But with the OnePlus One, you do have CyanogenMod 11s preloaded on the device, and there are those people who love having the ROM out of the box. And I know we also mentioned, too, that the Nexus devices, for CyanogenMod or Paranoid Android or whatever ROM it may be, they get a lot of developer support, and the ROMs are usually very stable, because I know when I had my Nexus 5, I put CyanogenMod 11, I think, on there, and even the nightly builds are always really surprisingly stable. So I do think these devices can probably coexist together. I know that they are kind of competing in the same area. You've got a high-end device and a really low-budget price. And OnePlus, they have had a lot of missteps in their course of 10, 11 years of being a company, or 10 or 12 months of being a company so far. But if you go on the forums on there still, there are a load of people that are still so darn excited for this device. I mean, people are still super interested in this company, despite the missteps that they have had. People are still interested in this phone. So you're going to have that Nexus device of people. You're going to have the OnePlus device of people. So I do think that the Shamu or whatever Motorola's Nexus, I think that could potentially hurt, and it probably will hurt potential OnePlus customers. But we are seeing the pre-order system for the OnePlus One coming out. OnePlus has said sometime in October. We don't know what the exact date of that is just yet, but I've got to say, because I also own the OnePlus One, for those of you who don't know yet, and this is still one of my favorite phones I have used, and I would be definitely interested in a 5.9-inch screen that is the same size as this, because that is really impressive to me, because again, like Tony said, you do have those capacitive buttons on this device. So I'm really excited to see what Motorola can do with the Next Nexus Shamu, if those rumors do turn out to be true. But I am interested to see the kind of competition between OnePlus and Motorola, because I think they're still going to have room for both of them, but it will be interesting to see how they kind of clash together with both of those in the market.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with you too, Tony, and I'm going to tell you there's a couple reasons. Two things Nexus devices are not known for: camera and battery life. They're really not. And I haven't owned a OnePlus, so I'm going to go by what I know you've said, and you constantly saying how great the battery life is. 7 hours of screen on time. That's unheard of, even for a Note device, which has a gigantic battery. Okay, so Quad HD, you have to have a bigger battery just to even power the screen, even with the 805, which is designed for the Quad HD. So I have a feeling battery life is not going to be nearly as good as the OnePlus. Camera. You've talked about how good the camera on the OnePlus is. And Nexus devices typically not great camera. So I think those two things alone might lean someone possibly towards the OnePlus over the Nexus device. But more importantly, even though we will see CyanogenMod on the Nexus device, it's inevitable. CyanogenMod with the OnePlus, they're working directly with the hardware manufacturers, so they have direct access to the low-level drivers to be able to tweak anything they want from Qualcomm, from the hardware, from the camera. So they have complete access to that device. Without getting too technical, CyanogenMod is CAF based, which is not Android open source. It is a slight derivative. So CyanogenMod actually has to do a lot to bring a Nexus device into CAF because the differences with the Qualcomm drivers and things like that. So I don't think you'll ever get as good of an experience with a Nexus device as you'll have with the OnePlus, because it wasn't designed specifically with CyanogenMod in mind.
That's true, but I can say I never once used CyanogenMod when I had an Nexus 5. And it wasn't just, I did have like a little bit of annoyance with them, but it wasn't just because I was annoyed with them, it was because the Nexus device on its own works better than any other device. It runs the Android smoother, faster, and better. Now the OnePlus One is comparable. They have done a really good job, and then they've got kernel tweaks and all kinds of tweaks to help with the battery life as well. So the battery life, yes, is superb. And that will be, like you said before, the battery life will be the really deciding factor, because if we see some battery life that's even comparable, if I could get the same amount of standby time and about at least 5 hours of screen on time in a day, out of the new Nexus, I would totally switch. And here's one reason why. Because right now, since OnePlus is shooting themselves in the foot by not releasing the device, I've still got a phone that even in less than mint condition, is worth the same amount that I paid for it. Because you can't just go buy the device. I can at least make back what I paid for the phone. So I know a lot of people who want to support CyanogenMod would still use the phone. But as far as I'm concerned, anyone who's waiting right now for a OnePlus One, if somebody says, "Oh, hey, $50 more, and you can buy a better phone with a bigger screen, the same size body, and you can actually buy it now, and it'll be at your house next week," they'll do it.
Well,
anybody will do it. And that's the thing. That's why I think they shot themselves in the foot. Go ahead.
Well,
sorry.
Yeah, but okay, it's Motorola. All right, the Moto X last year and this year now we're seeing huge delays in their shipping chain. So can they deal with the demand of a Nexus device when they can't even deal with the demand of their flagship device? So we have a question in the Q&A I wanted to get to real quick and throw this out there from Mark Hoyle, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. Yep. He wants to know, how much longer do we think the Nexus program is going to stick around?
I think we can. Oh, you can go, Tony.
No, go ahead. I was going to mention Android Silver, but we can get to that.
Well, I was going to mention that too because we had heard those rumors of Android Silver for quite a few months now. But I think in the past week or two, we kind of heard some rumors suggesting that it might be getting pushed back, or we're going to see the Nexus program kind of carry out for a bit longer than we originally thought when we first heard these rumors about Android Silver. So I think from like what I've read and seen so far online, I think the Nexus brand and the Nexus program is still going to stick around for a few more years at least. I don't think that this next Motorola Shamu is going to be the last and final Nexus device. I think we are still going to see a few more Nexus or Nexi devices come out because we saw those rumors for the HTC Nexus tablet, the 9 or 8-inch or whatever. So I do think we're still going to get a few more devices out of this. I do believe we're going to see Android Silver at some point, which will probably take over the Nexus brand or exist along with it. We don't really know any full details about that yet because Google has been really silent on that right now. But I do think we're going to have a few more years out of this Nexus program, and it's not completely dead in the water just yet.
Yeah, I feel the same way, and here's why. Because Android Silver is to a different audience than Nexus is. Nexus is for developers. Like, let's not forget, we may see a shifting of focus for the Nexus program because the Nexus program is supposed to be to developers. It's not supposed to be the highest and best device around. It's supposed to be an affordable device so someone can develop their app and make a living. And somebody who can't afford to go out and spend $700-800 on the high-end device to make sure it works. But I think that Nexus will stay around, but I think that they may try to refocus and say, hey, all you people who are crazy about Google phones, maybe you should try Android Silver so that we're actually making money on the devices.
Right. Well, it's cool, though. It'd be interesting to see if maybe we have kind of 3 device categories from Google because don't forget we still have the Google Play Edition devices, which are kind of Google's way of taking the top names in hardware now and saying this is a software experience that we think is best for this device. Then you've got the Nexus line of devices, which is, like you said, for developers. So they've got a cheap system or device to buy that still has comparable specifications so they can develop those apps and stuff for it. Then you've got supposedly the Android Silver, which is like we talked about, kind of the premium end of devices. So it'll be curious to see if maybe we've got a timeline where we've got those 3 sections of devices that maybe kind of see Google sort of merge all of them, or at least the Nexus and the Silver, into one. So that'll be something to keep an eye out for sure as time goes on with that.
Yeah, I think more likely what we'll probably see is the GPE, the Google Play Editions, morph into Android Silver. I think that's what we're more likely to see.
Anyone who's watching right now, leave a comment on our event page, and let's see if Q&A might be up and running now. Nope, still disabled. Okay, well, leave a comment on our event page, or even on the video after if you watch this afterwards, and we will get you a Don't Text and Drive bumper sticker. Before we get into the Don't Text and Drive campaign, I'm going to go ahead and just let you guys know about something that a wonderful company called Logitech did for me last week. I reached out to them and let them know about our Hangout on Air. I was using a horrible, a PlayStation Eye, actually, from a PlayStation Move as my webcam. That was so, if anybody recalls, 2 weeks ago I was wearing a really bright blue shirt. That was this shirt. So that's how bad that camera was. This is a black shirt. It came across as blue. If you don't remember, scroll back through our videos and you'll see it. It was sad. It was that sad. So what Logitech did for me was they sent me a C920 HD Pro webcam for the show and to do a quick review on it. I did the review today. Joe will be getting that uploaded to the channel sometime next week. And this is an awesome camera. MSRP is at $99.99. You can buy it right now on Amazon for $69.99. So if you're looking to spend a little bit of money on a nice webcam for video chatting, I know with Skype it will do 1080p video calls. So you can do full HD video calls with this on Skype, and then 720p video calls on everything else, and 1080p video recording if you have an application on your computer that will do it. It's got Carl Zeiss optics lens with 20-step autofocus. which I do test in the review. It has a special hole in the bottom that will mount it to a normal tripod, so that's how I've got it mounted right now instead of on the screen of my computer. And it does it takes 15 megapixel snapshots. So it is an awesome camera. Oh, and probably one of the most impressive things about it, it's got dual microphones for stereo recording, and they actually do sound really good. So when you check out my review, I test the stereo functionality of each sides of the webcam, and I test and make sure that it is indeed stereo, and the microphones that are in it actually sound really good. I was not they sound way better than the microphones that are in my computer, that's for sure. So again, MSRP is $99.99 on Logitech site, but it is on Amazon Prime right now for $69.99. Really appreciate Logitech sending this out to me, because I now feel like one of those awesome HD webcasters, people. So I'm really appreciate them sending it out to me for review and to test and to use on our show, because it makes me feel very professional. And check out the review when we do get that posted later on in the week. So thank you so much, Logitech. I really appreciate you sponsoring the show. Now let's go ahead and move on to Teresa. Thank you so much for sitting through all this geek talk and talk about devices you've probably never heard of, and I hope that you do get to see some of these devices since you're in AT&T. That would be really cool for you. But when was let's go ahead and talk about the It Can Wait campaign, and could you just tell us when the campaign was initially introduced?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's very exciting to be on and be able to talk about this important issue. We launched It Can Wait campaign back in 2010, and basically the bottom line was to remind people that no text is worth a life and that it can wait.
Yeah, so I know like when I get like the AT&T devices to review, I always see like those stickers on the phones and stuff. So it is really AT&T, even it's like the commercial and the products you get. How much they are pushing that, so it is cool to see how relevant it is with the company as a whole. So like since you did launch it, like how successful have you seen that campaign be? Like have you like got like a pretty good response from it so far?
Yes, it's been amazing. We have about 5 million pledges to not text and drive since we launched in 2010. We do a lot of outreach to schools and to businesses and things like that, where we go out and we talk about the importance of not texting. We have a cool documentary called The Last Text that you can find on itcanwait.com, and it really resonates with young people because this documentary talks about the last text that people made before they were either killed in an accident or they caused an accident, and usually it's something simple like LOL or haha, nothing really important. And so we just want people to realize that nothing's that important to send. You can save your own life and the life of others if you don't do this dangerous habit.
Yeah,
right,
so
and I know it is cool.
itcanwait.com. That'd be great. I'd put it in the showcase for you if I could, but I will go ahead and get that linked on the video when it goes up to YouTube. Go ahead, Joe.
I was gonna say it's cool if like me being a teenager and being kind of like still a new-ish driver. It is cool to see that campaign go out there because it kind of like resonates with me a bit, because I know I've got friends, I'll say that I know them, they drive and they do the texting and the driving, and it's like you're really kind of an idiot for doing this because it's such a simple thing. And then you watch the videos in Driver's Ed about the results of just picking up a phone, or even making a phone call, or just texting or something. And like you said, how just maybe half a second of doing something can make a life-changing situation like that. So,
and adults
yeah.
don't give good examples either. Teenagers text and drive, they're the newest ones, but adults have been doing it as well for years. We just launched in August #X, which is geared, Joe, specifically for teenagers, and so we're hoping that teenagers will use this simple tool to remind their peers that they are getting in a car and they can't drive. It's kind of like a social media pause, just #X.
Right, and I saw that too. So what's kind of the significance of that, or what is the #X, like what does the X symbolize with that campaign with it?
Yeah, it's just basically stop, #X, you tweet it out. It can wait. I cannot talk to you right now. I'm taking a break. I'm in the car. When I get back out, I'll let you know when I can talk. #X is just a simple thing. You can do #It can wait, but #X really quick, simple, and I think it's something that's catchy and it can resonate with people.
Yeah, because it's kind of got that cool. It's a quick sound. It's a quick hashtag, and I know people my age, we do not have the longest attention span for anything at all. So that quick, just one letter, that works perfectly for something like this too. So with the hashtag it can wait, is that hashtag X being used in conjunction with that, or is the hashtag X kind of taking over the hashtag it can wait?
No, we're always going to have hashtag it can wait because we have such brand recognition with that. We've worked really hard to spread that message. Hashtag X was geared specifically for teens, and so we're hoping the younger generation uses that.
Yeah, that is fantastic because I know I haven't been using it yet because I've been meaning to kind of like share that with my friends on Twitter and stuff, but
yeah.
It is a really cool kind of campaign. It's just quick and fast, and it again resonates with people my age, which again you want to target all ages from both adults to teens, but each one is at fault for doing that at every point in their life at some point while driving. But it is cool. You're kind of reaching out to both the adult area demographic and also with the teens with the hashtag X.
The funny thing is, Joe, when we go into schools, because we have a texting and driving simulator that we take, and almost every teen says, oh, I can beat the system, I can do it. And basically it's like a video game. They have a wheel and a pedal and they drive. It's a safe way to see whether or not you can actually text and drive. And in every case, they end up hitting a car, or the police pull them over because they're speeding, or they bump into another a pedestrian. And so it's an easy way, a safe way for kids to see, and adults, because we take it to places where adults are, that this is such a dangerous and deadly habit, and it really needs to stop.
Yeah, it's quite amazing. I used to live in the D.C. area, and I'll actually have to say that adults and those actually who work for the government were probably the worst. I mean, you could be driving down 66 and see every single one of them sending emails, sending text messages. So, a question I've always been wondering is, when GPSs first became big in car dashes, the government kind of stepped in and said, no, we have this regulation that if the car's moving, you can't put addresses in the GPS. Do you guys kind of see that with such a problem this has become? Now, obviously, states have started out saying you're going to get fined for texting or talking or hands-free. Do you kind of think that companies and/or maybe the government's going to step in and put something on our phones that basically says, "Nah, if you're moving, you can't text"?
That's an interesting question, but just like you said, each state has their own regulations, and even in Michigan, it's down to the city. Some cities say it has to be hands-free. Some cities say you can't be even at a stop sign. Our state law is you can't be moving. But I don't know if you're familiar with the Drive Mode app that was created by one of our AT&T employees, and it does just what you're mentioning. It disables texting while you're driving more than 25 miles an hour, and it's amazing. It's been downloaded 1.5 million times already, and it's available on BlackBerry and Android devices. So it does what you're talking about. I don't know if the government will be doing it, but we have the ability on AT&T Drive Mode to do just that.
Now, how does that make a distinction between a driver and a passenger, Teresa?
It goes by GPS technology, 25 miles per hour movement. And so I believe if you're the passenger, because that's happened to me, I just turn it off if I'm the passenger because it disables it. But it's a wonderful tool because you can also, it's like an out-of-office alert. If you are driving, it will send you a text message or an email to the person saying, I'm driving, it can wait. But it's a wonderful tool.
Yeah, that is nice because I know when I had my original Moto X, it's got kind of the assist on there where if you get a text, they updated it where you could speak a message to talk, and that is nice, but even that in itself is distracting too because you're trying to think about what am I going to say to this person replying by voice, which it is safer, I will say, than looking down and trying to look and type on a keyboard versus talking, but I do like the Drive Mode. It just blasts out that message so you're not focusing on, I'm going to have to think about what I'm saying and take my concentration off the road to talk to this. I do like how it just kind of sends out that that message of, what, I'm driving, it can wait. So that is very cool. I've toyed around with that on some AT&T phones I've gotten before, and it is a really nice app. I've used it in the past. It's really nicely designed and works really great.
You obviously always have access to 911, and I believe now you can even program 5 people into the Drive Mode app that in emergency situations it will contact those 5 people, roadside assistance and things like that. But for the most part, it's a great thing for the masses.
I'm going to go ahead and throw a link to the It Can Wait app on our event page also if anyone wants to check it out.
Now, is the It Can Wait or the Drive Mode app itself, is that only for AT&T phones, or can anyone use that?
Anyone, download it in your Play Store or in your whatever app device you have. That's where you can get it. And it's a free app, which is fantastic too. There's several other apps that do the same thing. This one is definitely free.
Yeah, it is good to have that, like, on such easy access, not being limited to a carrier. I mean, I've got AT&T on my phone, so I've got it on there, but it is nice to have that open availability to pretty much anyone if they want to download it. They're not limited to a certain carrier, so it is cool. AT&T is branching out to say, you know, even if you're on Verizon or T-Mobile, you still have access to the app to kind of give you a little extra guidance when you're driving in the whole texting area.
You should know we launched this in 2010, but nearly all the carriers support this It Can Wait campaign and have done their own kind of outreach as well.
That's actually interesting that you mentioned that, because I was going to ask, have you been kind of contacted? I mean, you guys seem to be at the forefront of this, you know, with your It Can Wait campaign, and you know, but has, you know, the other carriers like Verizon, Sprint, T-Mobile, have they kind of, you know, contacted you guys and get behind it and help you kind of promote it as well?
Yeah, I don't know specifically all the carriers. I know Verizon was one of them. We did have a partnership where they supported this message too. I mean, how can you not? I mean, we're selling these devices, which are very, very, very cool, but we want people to be safe with them. You know, last Friday was the day of action for the It Can Wait campaign, and that's the day where we really push the opportunity to take the pledge. And so while we were out there, the people were in line. They were in line for hours, so we took that as an opportunity to tell them about the It Can Wait campaign. We passed out these glasses that they got, these car decals that your guests will get today. They got this when they were in line for the It Can Wait. A couple lucky few got this really nifty It Can Wait t-shirt, which is kind of fun. But yeah, every opportunity we get, we spread the word. So we had a captive audience last Friday waiting for that store to open for iPhone.
That was a pretty smart move to take the iPhone launch to do that.
It was actually coincidental that the day of action landed on iPhone launch day. But yeah, even if it doesn't, I think next year we'll have to do the same thing.
So with that,
buy the device, but be safe with it, you know.
with the that day of action thing you're talking about, like, how often have you been doing that? Has that been something you've been implementing since like the launch of the It Can Wait, or is that kind of a newer part of the campaign that you launched recently?
Several years. I want to say we launched this It Can Wait in 2010. We've had at least 3 day of actions, and it's been really successful in order to get the message out and to get pledges, to encourage people to take that pledge, to remind people that it can wait. This is a dangerous, really dangerous behavior, and adults and teens alike really need to take heed to it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is. It's great that we've got all this technology like the Drive Mode app and the campaign, but it is frustrating too at the same time. You've got such a simple thing, such a common sense thing of you'd think that why would you text while driving? It's such a little thing to do, but we have to put all of this campaign efforts into something that just seems like such common sense to most people. But I'm not trashing the campaign or anything. That's fantastic. We've got that up to help kind of get away from the texting and driving, but it just kind of do like, why do we have to put so much effort into something that seems such like a no-brainer when you talk about it? But
well, it's one of those things where education about lots of things, you know, you have to have you need to have people to remind people. It's just kind of like, you know, I liken it to driving campaign, you know. That's one of those no-brainer things too, but yet we have to remind people that, you know, you can't drink and then get behind the wheel of a car. Texting and driving is just as dangerous. You know, there's 200,000 accidents related to texting and driving each year. And so the more that people are aware, the more you spread the word, I think the better we'll get at curbing the problem.
yeah, absolutely. Because like we talk about a lot just in general as a society. The drinking and driving is obviously the biggest one. Then we've got exhaustion in driving, and then talking on the phone and driving. But texting is something because we've got these like 3 big players talking on the phone, exhaustion, and then drinking. When texting is just as dangerous, if not more so, in some situations. So it is good to kind of shine more light on that, and something that can kind of tend to get looked over as something that some people don't think is that big of a deal. So it is nice to have that there too.
Sure.
So do you guys have any more questions for Teresa? Hashtag X or Come Late or the Drive Mode app?
Yeah, I guess for the Drive Mode app. So we said it's Android and BlackBerry. Obviously I understand it's pretty easy, much easier to work under those. Is there any plans for iOS or working with Apple? I mean, obviously, you need special level access on the phones, which you can get in Android. iOS much more locked down. Has there been conversations with Apple about maybe enabling special access for this app? I mean, it's a really cool app. I'd love to see it on, across.
We're working on getting it on other devices for sure.
When I checked on the website just now, you can select iOS as your operating system, but it just talks about hashtag. So right now it's just going to be hashtag X.
That's our goal. That's our goal.
Well, that is really cool. I think hashtag X is a really, really awesome thing because it's, I don't know. I mean, I guess the phrase I want to use is kids at their level. So it's something, it's trendy, it's a hashtag, everybody wants a new hashtag to use, and I mean, just like anything, you get something new, you want to play with it, so in my opinion, you find a new hashtag that's really popular, yeah, I want to put some in that stream, so that is pretty cool. I like the hashtag X thing. Okay. All right, well, it looks like we've got some other stuff to go on to. We usually skip over a lot of the headlines just in case because we usually start to run out of time because we do so much. We try to talk about so much. There was one thing that we skipped over that I'm interested in hearing the guys talk about a little bit more, which is the HTC Eye. Chuck, Fred?
Okay. Yeah, so I obviously have the HTC M8 guy, once again, one of these rumor things. So HTC does actually have an event scheduled. I believe it's in the beginning of October. And rumors, there's actually going to be 2 devices announced. One is like a GoPro type camera that apparently from the leaked screenshots looks like a piece of pipe. Design is, being able to take videos wherever. I don't. Some people, I guess, are into that kind of thing. And the other, of course, that I would be more interested in would be the HTC Eye, which is apparently the M8 with a 13 megapixel camera. Now I'm interested because I like the camera on the M8. The ultra pixel is a cool idea. If I'm looking at pictures on the phone or a tablet, they're okay. As soon as I start looking at those pictures on my MacBook Pro here or a larger screen device, you really start to have problems with the camera in the M8. So a 13 megapixel is feasibly going to give you that that bigger picture that's going to look better on bigger devices. The question is though is it going to be as the ultra pixel camera?
I think that one thing that we can definitely agree on is for a while they started talking about the megapixel myth, which is an interesting idea, but like you said, when you start looking, I started looking at pictures from the HTC M8 and comparing them. Whenever I compare pictures, like I had the M8 and the Galaxy S5 at the same time for review, and the Galaxy S5, and people always criticize me for saying it blew the cameras from the Galaxy S or the photos, from the Galaxy S5 blew the photos that the M8 took out of the water. And people criticize me when I say that, but when I'm looking at them, what I'm doing is I'm pulling them up on a 1080p monitor and looking at them side by side, and I'm talking pictures that I literally walked around my neighborhood with both phones going like this and took them in the exact same lighting conditions in the exact same place of the exact same thing. And the Galaxy S5 was the clear winner in every case, and it's because, like you said, I'm pulling it up on a 1080p monitor, looking at them in almost full size or half size, but still I'm able to see a lot of the pixelation that is there on the M8 because it's only 4 megapixels. That just isn't there on the Galaxy S5. Now, if we were still using devices, if we were still using monitors on computers from like the tube monitors with the rounded screens, then it wouldn't be an issue. We wouldn't be able to tell a difference. But now that we've got Quad HD displays on our smartwatches, we're going to be able to tell the difference on there is megapixel myth is something I don't really agree with anymore, especially having come from a device with a 16 megapixel camera. And by the way, guys, the best camera I've ever used on a smartphone was from a budget manufacturer, Blue. They make devices for everyone to buy at pretty good prices. So the megapixel myth is just not a thing to me. I mean, that 4 megapixels, you really are shooting yourself in the foot. And I think the main thing, the thing that bugged me, had they made it a 6 megapixel or an 8 megapixel on the back, it would have at least been a little bit better. But putting 4 megapixels and however many ultra pixels on the back and 5 on the front, that was a little bit heavy-handed.
Yeah, I think that was.
Chuck, sorry, Fred, I wish you had gotten the M8 out, or the E8 out to check it out, because it's basically an M8 with a 13 megapixel camera and a
it's right. It's actually right here. I've got it on hand at the moment. I have not done any testing on it yet, but here's the phone. It's a nice box. It is a plastic case, but it's a really nice form factor. And bear with me a second. I received these two within a couple of days, and I haven't really spent enough time with either of them. I received the HTC One E8 and also the HTC Desire 510, which is I don't know if that's on camera here. That's clearly a budget model. But the two of them, very similar form factors, actually, very similar size. The E8 is a little bigger, but really very, very similar design, which I guess is getting to be kind of a standard sort of design for HTC. Mm-hmm. We can boot it up, and if it's got some charge on it, which it should, but I don't really yet have any experience with the camera, which certainly I'll have by next week's show.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to hear your thoughts on the speed of it, since it's got the same processor, storage, and amount of RAM as the M8. I'm excited to hear your thoughts on it, because it's not a budget phone. It's just a cheaper model of a flagship phone. So it's like a Samsung phone. It's like Samsung versus HTC.
So it's not a budget phone. It's a mid-price phone. I think. Where I saw it was on a monthly plan at $20 and change a month. So let's figure it as roughly a $500 phone. Not quite flagship level. Certainly not quite iPhone 6 Plus price point, but not like the Desire, which I saw is going to sell for about $100 to $200. But now this one, here you're talking about not wanting flagship phones or phones in general with less than 3 gigs of RAM. This only has 4 gigs of storage.
Oh, 4? I thought it was 8. I thought it was 8 or 6.
No, I thought it was 8, but it's actually 4 with a slot for a physical micro SD card. But I will say that I booted up the phone, and just to give some immediate impressions, apart from the fact that the screen and the interface is kind of cluttered and kind of clunky looking, which my son was looking over my shoulder and made that comment too immediately. But by the time I booted up, installed of apps to test, I was maxed out on storage already. So I don't know what they're thinking. I don't think the phone is going to ship with an SD card. So you're aiming here at budget users, people that might not be that tech savvy, and they're going to get a phone that immediately is maxed out on storage, which doesn't seem like the best approach.
There we go. Well, see, here's my thing, and I was noticing that I was putting the E8 in a database. A lot of feedback here. Oh, yep, that's you, Chuck. So I was noticing putting the E8 into our device database at work, and this is my thing about the E8 and the Remix, which I think is the other name for it. This is how they should be doing the smaller versions of phones. So, like, say the Galaxy S5's mini version. When mini versions or the budget model or the next one lower from their flagship device, when you see those, they often have half or a quarter of the amount of storage, half or three quarters of the amount of RAM, a lower end processor, and they take a smaller SD card. So, for instance, like the Galaxy S4 takes up to 64 gigabyte SD card, but the Galaxy S4 Mini will only read up to a 32 gigabyte SD card. The same thing with the processor. The Galaxy S4 is a Snapdragon 600. The Galaxy S4 Mini only has a Snapdragon 400 or whatever Samsung's Exynos version of that is. So they're not only making a smaller form factor of the phone, they're actually putting less specs in the device, which really bugs me, because if you're labeling it a Galaxy S4, it should work like a Galaxy S4 and just be smaller if it's a Galaxy S4 Mini. So I like to see that this E8 is aimed at at an audience who wants to spend slightly less on the phone, but it still takes up to 128 gigabyte SD card, just like the M8. It still has the Snapdragon 801 processor in it and the same amount of RAM, so it's still going to function just as well as an M8, with the possible exception of the amount of apps you can store on it, it sounds like. But you can always put apps on the SD card as well. Go ahead, Chuck.
I'm going to disagree with you. I actually don't that HTC did it. I know, tonight's like my night to disagree.
Yeah, I know.
Tony.
That's good.
I think it's dilution of market. It's the same thing that Samsung does that really frustrates me so much. Samsung has 8 million phones out there, which, yeah, is okay, but, so there's a choice of a phone for everyone, but the problem is half of them don't get updated, they don't all work the same, so now all of a sudden you get people thinking, oh, well, I've got a Galaxy device that doesn't work, so I hate Android, or because they had the choice of a cheap phone, okay, instead of, and this is the quintessential problem, I think, with Android versus iOS and Apple, is Apple, you've got, well, it used to be one choice, now two, okay? You're going to pay for the iPhone, and you're going to get exactly the experience that Apple wants you to get. Well, Samsung is the biggest problem I think we have in the Android world, is there's a million Samsung phones. And so someone has a bad experience with a cheap Android phone or a cheap Samsung phone, and all of a sudden, oh, Android's bad, I'm going back to Apple. So I actually wish that manufacturers would just stick to maybe a mid-level phone, maybe a high-level phone, and that's it.
Well, see, I feel you, and this, in my opinion, I wrote an article when I first started writing for Android Guys. I wrote an article about this conundrum in particular, and the article was entitled "Why Never to Just Go with the Free One." And the reason I entitled it that way was because for a while, when cell phone contracts first became ubiquitous and everybody was getting them and everybody was upgrading their phone, the most common question among my friends was, "Oh yeah, you're getting a phone upgrade. What are you going to get?" And the friend would always say, "Oh, I'm just going to go with the free one. I'm just going to go with the free one." Everybody always said that. So when smartphones started to become ubiquitous and all my friends started getting those, and people started saying, "I'm just going to go with the free one," or "I'm just going to go with the cheap one," I wrote this article because my friends would come to me knowing that I was the little techie in our group and say, "What kind of phone should I get?" Now, you have to know how to interpret what your friend is asking you, because what he's actually asking you is not, which device should I get? What he was asking you at this time was, should I buy an iPhone or should I buy an Android phone? And if you don't say iPhone, first of all, if you say iPhone, I know, right? If you say iPhone, they're going to go out and they're going to drop $199, $299, $399 on the phone. They have to, because they want to get. But if you say an Android phone, so what I'd always do is I'd say, well, what are your needs? What do you like to do? And I'd never suggest iPhone because I didn't do that back then. And I would say, here's the mid-range or high-end Android phone on your carrier, and this is the one you should get. So all they hear is, get an Android phone. So they'd come back with an LG Ally, and if anybody remembers the LG Ally, and they'd be like, "Tony, I hate you. Why doesn't this work? Like, why does this phone work for me? Why isn't it getting an updated?" Yeah, stuff like that. Thank you. It doesn't work because you didn't pay anything for it. Yeah. So actually, we're going to try to do a round table where we all sit and talk about this and upload it to the channel, entitled And because it is true, a cell phone is like a bed. When you're bed shopping, I'm sure you've all seen, you can buy a bed for like $20,000. Did you know that? $20,000 that does all kinds of stuff, and it's got like this air fit, and you can pay $20,000 for a bed, and it's the whole reason behind that is, so, to some people, a good night's sleep is worth $20,000. So because you're spending a third of your life in that bed, and you really, some people need to have a good night's sleep. Some people can't sleep on something hard. They have to have it exactly the right way. It's the same thing with the phone. You're going to be, like we were just talking about, this phone, I can use this phone for 17 hours. Wow, I almost threw it at the camera. I can use 17 hours on standby mode and 7 hours where the screen is actually on and I'm looking at the screen. That's 7 hours out of a day. That's the same amount of time that I sleep at night. I'm using this like a bed, and if it doesn't work right, if it doesn't get updated, if it doesn't have, I know it sounds silly, but I'm for real. Like, this is, I get hot about this because people go out and you buy a free phone. No, you're not going to like how it works. I can guarantee that you're not going to like how a free phone works. But that's, so hopefully we'll do a roundtable on that. I know we're going over, but a phone is like a bed. Just remember that. Next time you're buying a phone, just remember you're going to be looking at that screen all day, every day, text messaging, and when the keyboard doesn't pop up for like 5 minutes and you're sitting there tapping on the text messaging, just remember that old Tony boy told you not to buy the free phone.
I love how we're so sophisticated about our phone decisions now, and I remember after my Palm Pre, when I was first looking into Android smartphones, my whole decision basis was because I like the keyboard better on the Samsung Galaxy S Fascinate versus the Droid X. And then I get it, and I'm like, what? You can change keyboards? And that was like the whole thing I based my decision around. So that is where I started. So fun fact with that.
Yeah.
I still base mine around cameras, and there's this phone, the Samsung Galaxy S4 Zoom, that I'm sure you guys probably think it's a wimpy phone, but I love it for the zoom lens. I could take pictures of my kids. So every person has their thing, you know, what they like, and so for me, it's like camera lens, yeah.
You missed, Teresa, last week or the week before, we had a discussion on just that, because I think it was somebody who put the question in the QA chat as to whether camera was a valid criteria for making a choice of which cell phone to buy.
These days.
I think we all agreed that it was.
Yeah, because I mean, not only is it like a bed. Not only is a phone like a bed. Just I don't repeat that. Not only are you going to use it all the time, but who owns a digital camera anymore? And if you do, your whole family owns one.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas everybody in your family owns your own phone, even if it's not a smartphone, it still takes pictures unless it's free.
Two criteria: camera and how fast can I open that camera. What I've always loved about the Moto X and the M8, and all of them are coming this way now, is the fast gesture to open the phone, because that speed to open the phone is essential.
True.
All right, guys. Well, we've gone a little bit over today, but it's okay because we started a little bit late. I just want to thank Teresa so much for coming on and talking about It Can Wait. We were happy to have you on. Oh, definitely. Yeah, it was wonderful. Hopefully we can have you on again in the future. And everyone who has commented, I haven't refreshed in a while, to everyone who has commented, we'll definitely get in touch with you and get some It Can Wait bumper stickers shipped out to everyone. And if you're watching this later, we didn't have very many comments on the actual show page, so if you're watching this later, comment on the YouTube video. Joe's going to have some It Can Wait bumper stickers. Let us know you want one, and we'll make sure to get you an It Can Wait bumper sticker. And I did put a link to the It Can Wait app on the event page. I'll try to include that in the YouTube video description as well. So before we sign off for the evening, I know we've talked about this for a couple weeks. You guys are probably all wondering what's going on. We moved channels from the Tech Dissected channel. We're over here on Mobile Cup of Joe, and honestly, it's just a perfect fit. We've got way more subscribers on YouTube, and we've had quadruple or octuple, let's see, triple or quadruple the amount of viewers each week since we've been on Mobile Cup of Joe. So we are, as of this week, this is our last boat show. As of next week, we will be officially rebranded Dark Roast. So it's Mobile Cup of Joe presents Dark Roast. So we have some coffee snobs in here, and hopefully if you watch it, it won't take too much explaining. Mobile Cup of Joe presents Dark Roast, and to kick that off, I did get clearance from my representative at Blue Products to give away this Blue Win HD. It is their first Windows phone. Just a quick rundown on it. It's a 5-inch display. It runs Windows Phone 8.1. And it is a 720p display, 8 megapixel rear camera, 2 megapixel front camera. It's got 8 gigs of storage. It takes a 32 gig SD card. I haven't tried the 64. It might take a 64 also, and it is really fun. It is a nice device. It's got a Snapdragon 200 processor in it and a gig of RAM. So if you want to win this device, keep an eye out. Subscribe to our channel because the review of this device will be uploading tonight or tomorrow, Joe?
Well, I'll be setting it to upload tonight, but with the wonderful speeds of DSL, it'll probably be up sometime around 3 or 4 in the morning.
Okay, great. Well, keep an eye out. Stay up late. 3 or 4 in the morning, you'll be seeing that. No, check it out tomorrow. Check out Mobile Cup of Joe. Look for the full review of the Win HD on our channel and on Mobile Cup of Joe. It's youtube.com/Mobile Cup of Joe. You should know if you're watching this right now, but if you don't, look it up, subscribe, check out the review. The details for how to win will be in there, and then you will have to be tuned in and viewing next week, and that's when we're going to be announcing who won this Win HD. So very exciting stuff. Very excited for the move to the new channel. Hopefully our host, Alvy Rogers, will be back with us next week when we kind of kick off our new Dark Roast show. And we are going to try, it's not going to be an every week thing, but we are going to try to do something called After Dark Roast, which will be our hangout on air, or which I still believe would be on air, I'm not sure, our hangout after our show, where we can invite some of the viewers in to chat with us about technology. So did I miss anything, anybody? Anything anybody else wants to shout out about before we end tonight?
Well, we missed chatting about the bending iPhone 6 Plus.
Oh, that's right.
We may have to hold off and do Bendgate next week. And I'm sure there'll be some interesting developments by then.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's a feature that not a lot of people were expecting with their iPhone 6 Plus. So,
is it like Microsoft? It's a feature, not a bug?
Yes, yes.
Hey, that's every software developer's typical response. I use that all the time.
The funny thing, I think the funniest thing I've seen about Bendgate is all these Apple fans I've seen posting saying, well, why are you sitting down with that big of a device in your pocket? It's like, I've owned 7 Android devices at least this big, at least as big or comparable size to the iPhone 6 Plus. I go to movie theaters. I never take it out and just sit it in the cup holder of my movie theater. Why would I not keep the device in my pocket? And then they say something about keeping it in your front pocket. It's like, you expect somebody to keep an iPhone 6 Plus 5.5-inch display in their back pocket? Because I can guarantee you we're going to have a different issue than bending.
Well, Tony, you don't wear skinny jeans. I think the problem is all the skinny.
Not anymore, no. No, but yeah, it is. I mean, it is ridiculous. And somebody said, I think Marquez Brownlee, not to criticize him. I like Marquez Brownlee, but he said extreme sitting. He actually said extreme sitting. So if you're not extreme sitting, it won't be a problem. It's like, I'm sorry, dude. And then it actually showed like of a guy like going like this and sitting down. It's like, no. Because if it's that bad, it's happening. It's going to happen eventually, whether you're sitting, whether it's in your jeans. And you know what? The whole problem is, the whole reason it bends is that camera bump. If that camera bump didn't stick out, the thing wouldn't bend. Sorry, I had to do that.
But the thing is, this is not a new. It's not a new issue. Phones of that size or comparable sizes have been out for a while. People have been carrying cell phones in their pockets for a long time, and it appears that other manufacturers have dealt with the issue intelligently.
And
so it's a glaring oversight.
It's interesting you bring that up though, because I don't know if you saw it, because Unbox Therapy were kind of the whole Bendgate thing, and then I can't think of the guy's name who makes the videos for that channel, but then he put up a comparison video using devices like the Moto X, these Samsung Galaxy 3, and you do see the Note 3, it does kind of warp a little bit while he's bending it, and then the HTC One, I think the screen kind of popped out of that just a tiny bit. But it is interesting to see the iPhone 6 Plus bends so much, but even just a normal iPhone 6 doesn't bend anything like that. The Note 3, you can push it back into place with no problems. And that Moto X, when he pushed on that, like as strong as he could, there was no flex or anything to it at all. So it is interesting. It's interesting to see because the bending in these large smartphones, it's definitely an issue that we've had for a while. Smartphones have gotten progressively bigger and bigger. But I think Apple's fault was that they're using such a thin aluminum frame and a single aluminum frame for the whole design of the iPhone or the iPhone 6 Plus. And since it's so thin, there's just so much give to it. So that's a problem. iPhone 6 Plus users, you now have a bendable phone. So congrats to that.
And the funny thing is, a lot of people even said that the look of the iPhone 6 Plus isn't as premium as the look of the prior iPhones because they've always maintained like a really nice shiny exterior and glass on the front and back, or just really high-end looking. And the iPhone 6 Plus, although I like the design better, I have to agree, it doesn't look as premium. It doesn't shout. Somebody said it. It doesn't shout, "I cost a bunch of money," like all the other iPhones did. And now, of course, they're bending in people's pockets, and it's like, well, it obviously doesn't cost that much. But thank you guys so much. Thanks everybody for sticking around with us. We still have a couple lingering viewers. Thank you guys so much for sticking around with us as we went over our time. Thank you again, Teresa, for coming in and hanging out with us. Oh, definitely. It was so much fun. It was we just get on here, love to get on here and geek out every week. And again, thank you to all my co-hosts, Joe, Chuck, and Fred. It's been wonderful. Alvy, we missed you. We'll look forward to seeing you next week. But for now, guys, we're going to go ahead and sign off. And you better be here next week to see if you won the blue Win HD on Dark Roast. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.